Hello, welcome to this new episode of my podcast for learners of English around the world. Here is some more English listening practice for you, this time with a special guest, I'm very happy to say. And I think that a bit of an introduction is necessary for this one, just to give you a chance to understand the conversation better. So let me introduce my guest today and give you an overview of the main points in our conversation, to give you a sort of roadmap to help you follow everything that you're going to hear. So first of all, who is Mark Steele, my guest? Here are some pictures of him. You can probably see pictures on the screen now. This is Mark Steele. He's a well-known stand-up comedian and writer from the UK. Lots of people in the UK know Mark Steele. You see him on the TV sometimes. He's a published author of various non-fiction books, and he's done lots of radio shows on the BBC. His most recent radio show is called Mark Steele's in Town, which is a great show, and you can actually listen to it wherever you are in the world using the BBC Sounds app. Okay, you just download BBC Sounds and search for Mark Steele's in Town, and you can listen to it. So the show Mark Steele's in Town, let me explain what that is. So essentially, in every episode of the show, Mark visits a different place. Normally, these are smaller towns in the UK. The more obscure places, not the big cities, not London or Manchester or something, but normally the slightly more obscure places, the local spots that perhaps people don't know about so much. So Mark goes to those towns and he prepares and then performs a full 1 hour stand-up show in that place. So he does the stand-up show and it's all about the town. It's all about specific things and specific reference points and specific bits of history and culture relating to that town. So when Mark visits each town, he does loads of research and he also meets people who come from that place or who live in that place in order to find things out about it, which he can then add into his show. At the end of the most recent series of Mark Steele's in Town, he came to Paris and did a show here because as you may know, I live in Paris, and that's how I met him. I was one of the people he talked to in preparation for doing his show in Paris. So he did 2 shows when he was here in Paris. He did one in English and then one in French. They are both available to listen to on BBC Sounds, so you can check those out. Okay, so that's how I met Mark, and that's who Mark Steele is. Let me tell you a little bit about the conversation you're going to hear, as I said, just to help you understand it better. Okay, so first of all, we talk about Paris and London, and we kind of compare the two places a little bit. We talk about people being angry in both places. Sometimes there's a stereotype that French people in Paris are bad-tempered, whereas English people are more reserved. But is it true? What's the difference between Paris anger and London anger? And why does Mark enjoy it when Parisians get angry or unhelpful? We talk about customer service styles in Paris and Britain. Again, a stereotype, which may be true to an extent, is that Parisian people are a bit less helpful in customer service situations. But what about Britain? Can British people be rude and unhelpful too? We talk about the fact that English people don't seem to learn other languages. And we talk about why this is, plus the disadvantages of not learning another language and how this can make English speakers a little bit less open-minded and makes English speakers less aware of the struggle of foreign people trying to speak their language. So this relates to the way that native English speakers are not always the best communicators because they don't know what it's like to try and communicate in another language. We talk about Mark's learning of French because he speaks French and he takes French lessons and stuff. So we talk about his methods of learning French, what he finds difficult, and the challenges and joys of learning another language. We then get into stuff about where Mark comes from specifically and the attitudes that people from that part of England have about Europe. We talk about Mark's accent, and then we talk about different accents from around the country. Again, so there's quite a lot of conversation about accents and dialects in the UK and specific expressions as well that you might find. We talk about some specific expressions in French, what they mean and how confusing they are, and then similarly certain specific expressions that you might hear in English and how they can be quite confusing too. So yes, lots of stuff about British identities, and naturally this takes us to the topic of accents. And like me, Mark is fascinated by local accents and dialects, so we have quite a lot of fun exploring some of the different ways that people speak in different parts of the country. I hope that you can follow it all, listeners, and I hope that you enjoy listening to us playing around with those accents and sharing some of the very specific and idiosyncratic ways that English is used in specific local areas, and how English is different depending on which part of the country you're in, and how this reflects the strong local identities in the country. On the subject of accents, sometimes on my podcast when I feature different regional accents, every now and then I get comments from listeners in different parts of the world who sort of find it really hard to understand those accents. But I think it's really important still to listen to a wide variety of English accents. English is a very diverse language with many different accents in different places because, English is a very widespread language. So, I think you should embrace all the different varieties of English, and hopefully with an episode like this, I can help you do that, or at least help you enjoy noticing differences between different accents. Also, just before we start, there is some swearing in this episode. I should let you know that in advance. If you're offended by swearing, then, you have been warned. There is strong language in this episode. But, swearing is part of the language, and this is real British English after all on this podcast. And we are talking about authentic English, local dialects, and this includes the different ways that swearing is used in the UK. It's quite interesting that certain words, certain rude words, are less rude in certain parts of the country and more rude in other parts of the country. So basically, we're really just examining language and enjoying it in all its rich varieties. But there is strong language in certain places, including probably the strongest swear words that we have in English, including the F word, which of course you know, and even more shocking than that, the dreaded C word. Thinking which one's that? Well, listen on to find out. And perhaps the most shocking of all, in a certain place in the UK, the R word. And you're thinking, what's the R word, Luke? It's a word beginning with R, which is extremely rude and offensive, but only in one certain place in England. So if you'd like to know what this mysterious word is and where you definitely shouldn't say it, then keep listening. That's it for my introduction. I'm now going to let you listen to me in conversation with Mark Steele. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you're able to follow it. And now let's jump back in time to Saturday morning when I had my conversation with Mark and when my facial hair was slightly shorter. Here we go. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Luke. How lovely to see you. So last time I saw you, we were in some indeterminate street in Paris at about 1 a.m.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. After your shows, which are now on the BBC. Is the French version available?
It went out last night.
It did. Okay.
Yeah. It's available in French. Yeah, now as well. So I don't know how many people are going to listen to that on the BBC, and also I don't know at the point at which the sort of certain newspapers in and institutions in Britain that love to attack the BBC for any reason at all. And I can just see him going, now the licence payer is funding French.
Yeah, you might end up in the Daily Express with that one.
Yeah.
The outrage.
It's quite possible. It is amazingly possible that they will, if they think of it, go, now we're funding people speaking a language that isn't our own in a country who's a part of an institution that 52% of this country voted to leave, and he's saying words like pomme de terre. I'm sick of it.
It's a potato. It's not a pomme de terre. And this whole thing about apples in the ground. What are they talking about?
They don't even know an apple. And they had Napoleon, and he was on the radio. And then, yes, the levels of rage. I think for your listeners that are not in England, which sounds like that will be most of them. If you're not right, here's the thing. But 2 minutes before coming on to this, would this happen in Paris? I have, as I'm sure you have, sat and watched traffic arguments in Paris, and it is fine entertainment. I sat at a cafe when I was in Paris in May. I was in somewhere, I can't remember exactly where it was, but not far, about half a mile from Notre Dame, somewhere in a cafe where the hotel was. And I spent 2 or 3 mornings at this cafe. I got there about 7 in the morning, and I was sort of working on the show I was doing in the evening. I was listening back to it and everything. And each morning, on 2 or 3 occasions, a lorry came through, which was ill-advised because it's a very thin streets, and it would get stuck. A different lorry each morning, and there would be various people behind. Allez, allez, vous êtes un idiot! And and then he would sort of shrug and go, c'est pas possible, c'est français. And then and it was all quite. And then people would sit and watch with a very Parisian sort of condescending sort of way of looking and a demeanour that was like, oui, c'est normal.
Bah, c'est comme ça.
C'est comme ça, oui, c'est pas possible. Le camion, c'est trop grand pour les roues. And it was all very funny and that, and someone to get out, and that was it. And
I love that.
I love that.
I love watching Parisians arguing with each other. It's just the best. It's just the most entertaining thing because nothing ever really happens. Like the number of times that I've heard stuff going on in the street and I've gone, oh, what's going on? There's going to be a fight or something. And it never fully kicks off. People will just give lots of verbal abuse and stuff like that, lots of posturing, but there's never actually never goes any further.
Just before I came on here, I was just hopping up the English cafe this morning and I was just driving back, and there was a guy behind me in a car, and he wanted to turn into the turning I was turning into, but the bloke in front of me had stopped quite reasonably to let other traffic go past. So I had to stop. My only other option would have been to drive into the back of this bloke, and even that wouldn't really have helped the situation. So I elected not to drive into the back of this bloke and just to wait for him the 30 seconds that that I had no choice, and it didn't really bother me. But the bloke behind got so angry, and I think if you sort of live in a city like Paris, and you've never been to London, I'm not sure you would recognise this, but the anger, the rage in this man, I could see it in the mirror, and I think I would really struggle to act that angry if it was sort of. If someone on EastEnders, which is like, for people who don't know, EastEnders is a soap opera set in East London, where every single moment of the programme is people angry. Shut it! I've had enough! If this bloke was on EastEnders, the director would be going, can you take it down a bit? It's too much. The rage, I can't exaggerate. If anyone listening, the veins, I could see in the mirror. And he was just, his whole mouth dislocated, like when you see one of these snakes on a Attenborough film. His whole mouth sort of seemed to be like a Muppet. His whole face was this, and I couldn't see, obviously I couldn't hear what he was saying. Maybe he was having a philosophical debate with whatever podcast he was listening to. They can't underestimate it, or something, I don't know. But the fucking rage in this man, and of course,
maybe he was a Daily Express reader who'd heard your French broadcast on the BBC, and he was just furious about it.
He might have been.
Yeah,
I just sort of. It was absolutely fascinating. It would have been if that had been filmed and it was on an Attenborough. Here we see the Mail in London expressing rage of a quite extraordinary nature. Well, then fucking drive into him! How dare you exist? Now I'm going to be 30 seconds later. I thought the only other option, if he was that determined to get to where he was 30 seconds, the only other option he had was to have left his house 30 seconds earlier. That is not possible.
But people don't beat their horns in London as much as they do in Paris. Like, people will just instantly beat their horn as the solution to all traffic issues. It's just, the road is blocked and they can see that it's blocked all the way up because there's a big truck in the road, and they all just start beeping their horns And even the people who can't see what's going on, like there's just traffic in the street, they'll just start beeping their horns as if everyone's just like, oh yeah, everyone forgot they were driving down the road and they needed to be reminded by the horns.
Paris.
Yeah, in Paris, people beat their horns all the time. It's just like a normal level of rage, but it seems to be, it's not that English rage, which is kind of like this pent-up rage. In France, if you have even a little bit of frustration, it'll just come out. You know, whereas in England, we hold it in, and then pow, it all explodes.
It's certainly angry. I mean, I thought, at that moment, I did think, this is quite threatening here. and which I'd never, ever, and I don't know, I mean, I did quite a bit of my programme, I mentioned this, didn't I, about how in France, when there's even when people are rude in Paris, for me, it's funny. I don't know why, but it just seems funny. It doesn't seem that there's a real aggression behind it. And someone said to me, a guy, really lovely fella called John Henley, who writes for The Guardian. He's the Paris correspondent for The Guardian. And he said to me that what you've learned, he's lived in Paris now for 25 years, his kids have grown up there and all that. And he said to me, you can't fight it. If you try to fight that sort of Parisian shrug, that sort of deliberate, I'm going to be slightly awkward on purpose. If you try to fight it, you will lose. You just got to ride with it and go, yeah, that's what they're like. And then you reach a sort of very happy little state of Parisian sort of acceptance. But here it's different. Here, most people, in my experience, are absolutely lovely, delightful and polite. But when you get the angry people, and there's quite a lot of them, there was nothing pleasant about that bloke. And there's quite a lot. I don't know why. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a funny one. So you come to Paris quite often, don't you? I mean, you do like coming here when you can.
Yeah, I love it. I've got to work and have family and stuff, so I don't come as often as I would like to. But yeah, I love it. I feel very much at home there. I don't know why. Maybe there's a bit of me wants to be sort of wants to just be rude when the mood takes. I mean, there was a bit because I'd written the script about that quite a bit, and then when we I came over at the end of September. And met up, first of all, with two colleagues from the BBC who came over as well to help make the programme. The two who didn't speak French at all. And I sort of mentioned to them, but this is what it'll be like. And we went to the Gare du Nord. They arrived at Gare du Nord. I went and met them. We went to the little ticket office, and I'd written a bit about this script, and it exactly happened, exactly as written it, because the guy in there, the little guichet, and he was looking absolutely bored. I think I put in the script that it was that those people in those places display the minimum amount of enthusiasm that it is biologically possible to display while remaining alive, and wanted a ticket. Bought a ticket. The ticket didn't work. Okay, tried to buy another ticket. We had the ticket ready. Tried to buy another ticket. Offered him money. No, n'accepteront pas l'argent maintenant. So he didn't accept any money. Okay, he went, avez-vous une carte? Yeah, I've got a card. Yeah, so I got my card out, and he went, the machine ne marche pas. The machine doesn't work. So right. So I can't pay with money, and I can't pay with a card.
Also, he let you try. And do it. He didn't tell you beforehand.
It's brilliant. But here's the really interesting thing was that because I said, well, what do I do? Yeah, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? And he went, je ne sais pas, I don't know. And so we stood there, and I sort of laughed, and he just sat there looking like, I don't care. And well, you've got to go. Why does that affect me? And there was no rudeness. It was funny. And the two people I was with thought it was funny. They could sort of get what was happening. And then, after about 2 or 3 minutes, he just went, boom, and he pressed a button and opened the door, and we just went in. So we went in for nothing. So almost like,
There's no malice. There's no malice to the lack of customer service. It's not like I'm going to be unhelpful out of spite towards you. It's more just like, this is. I just want to just have a relaxed day. And he's like almost enjoying letting you go through the motions, even though he knows that he can just open the door. And for some reason, there's always that always happens in these little transactions where there needs to be a little bit of a problem. There needs to be you need to climb a little hill before ultimately you realise that it's just a push of a button and then everything's okay. But there needs to be several stages of c'est pas possible. There's lots of pas possible first before it becomes possible, and I don't know why.
Maybe in Paris, instead of liberté, égalité, fraternité, I think c'est pas possible should be the. Should be the slogan.
Just that written across the Assemblée Nationale. Mais c'est pas possible. Bon, c'est comme ça.
But there's something very endearing about it, I think. And as you say, it is always. And I guess that the more, that's just to get onto the bloody metro. I would imagine if you want to buy property, that involves, and I've watched someone try to do this. Buying a bit of properties, I guess that probably takes 6 months of going through c'est pas possible in lots of very big documents and forms, and then suddenly it is possible, and then it happens. It's the same.
Just incredible levels of pas possible, like all sorts of levels of it where you can't even see the pas possible anymore. It's like, you're in a forest and you're just like, what is going on?
So have you done that? Have you done that, Luke?
Yeah. We bought a flat here, last year. So this is like our first year living in it. And my wife handled it all. She's French, so she handled all of that stuff. And I just like tried to hold on, try and follow exactly what's going on. And it worked out okay in the end. The difficult thing was getting all the work done in our place.
All right.
And trying to communicate with the guys doing the work. There were like 3 different languages. No one spoke anyone else's language. Lovely, yeah. There was like it was done by some guys from Egypt, and they didn't speak French or English. I didn't speak French or Arabic, and so that was interesting.
So how's that worked? What have they built then? They've got we didn't really want a bathroom on the ceiling.
Yeah, we're still trying to sort out the aftermath of that particular job. But it's a crazy one.
English, on the other hand, I know I did this in the program, but it's a true story. When I was coming over just before the lockdown, and I decided to go on the boat, and I thought that'd be a nice, lovely change. And the boat itself was fine, but the paraphernalia of that this is a very English thing. So I went to Dover, got the P&O Ferry. This was before P&O went bankrupt, obviously. And they've given up, really, the ferry people. They've obviously surrendered to the Eurostar now, eventually. And it's just tatty. And there's a little office you go to, and you have to show your passport and prove that you've bought a ticket. And there's this woman in this dirty old office who looks down her list, just looks down a sheet of paper to see if you've bought almost like you're trying to get into a nightclub or something, and you see if you're on the list. Yeah. And she's English. And she's absolutely bored, but in an English way, not in a sort of Gare du Nord metro way, in a very English sort of absolutely exhausted way. And there was a woman in front of me who seemed to speak only French. Now, given that half the people there, they're trying to get on a boat to go to Calais. So you would think at least half the people that she encounters are French.
Yeah.
This woman at this little P&O office in Dover. And the woman in front of me spoke French to her. Excusez-moi, madame, j'ai réservé un billet pour le bateau qui va partir après-midi. And the English woman, I promise his exact words, she went, "Oh, don't talk to me in French. My French is fucking shit."
Oh, don't talk to me in French. Oh, for Christ's sake.
It's fucking shit. It's just so that is why I love England. That I love that woman.
This is the customer service at P&O Ferries. Like, don't speak to me in French, for Christ's sake. My French is fucking shit.
And of course, luckily, the French woman didn't seem to speak English enough to her. She's, pardon? And then I sort of intervened a bit. But there was
amazing. Like English people just don't like even the one serving the French people who are going to France. Like the idea that she has to speak French to them is just like, oh God, don't make me speak French for goodness sake.
I couldn't blame her. She's not learned it. She's probably paid about minimum wage.
Yeah.
But I think of course, there is another side to that, which is the English refusal to learn another language. And there's lots of reasons for that. And one of them is that we don't have to, because you go around the world speaking English and usually be all right. But part of it, I think it's and I guess this comes into the sort of remit of what your listeners are listening out for a bit. One of the things I find very frustrating, if you don't try to learn another language, you don't understand the other person's point of view with a language. So I was listening to the football on the radio a few weeks ago, and there was, I can't remember which French person it was, Patrice Evra or someone like that, someone who was French who spoke amazingly good English. And the commentator asked a question that was so full of phrases. So what do you think, Patrice? He's gone all round the houses with this and up and down and all over the shop. And, at the end of the day, what's going on with him? Who can understand whether he is he back or front, or is he in the team or out, or what? What's going on, mate? He's like a bleeding, donkey out of a whatnot, or something like that. It was something like that. And he went, "I am sorry. What have you just said to me?" And I thought, somehow we have no concept of what it's like to come at a language that you don't. If you try to, I think everyone should try and learn a language, because at the very least you understand how difficult it is for other people speaking your language.
Yeah, there is definitely a thing where, like, English speakers, English people who meet people who don't speak English as a first language, often we've got no idea about how to grade our language for them. And people, instead of making it simple, they, for some reason, make it more complicated. Like, instead of saying, sorry, where is the market? They say, do you know of the whereabouts of the serving area where it is possible to purchase foodstuffs to be consumed? I don't know why we do these things. And also throw in lots of idioms to try and make the person relaxed. It's like, all right, mate, I'm just having a little shufty round the place. Do you know where I can get some grub? As if that's going to make the person comfortable.
What is shufty? I've looked up on Google Translate. It's not shufty. Fucking all stuff and shit and that. Stuff and shit and that. No, exactly. I was actually, I was just this week. I sort of have a French lesson every week. And I was trying to learn. I don't really know. I don't know. I'd be interested to know what you think about this, Luke. But I don't really think there's any way with a language round the fact that you do have to just sit there and learn it. I think all of these sorts of daft sort of adverts, learn a language in 3 weeks, or people go, just listen to the radio and you'll pick it up. I don't think there is a way round the fact. So I've just tried to learn 30 of them. Marcher sur des œufs. The one I like was this one. Love this. If someone's a bit crazy, tu as été bercé trop proche d'un mur. Your cradle was rocked too close to the wall.
Wow, that's good.
That's poetic.
So you whacked your head against the wall.
No wonder you bloody doolally, mate. Your cradle was not too close to the wall.
The cradle was rocked too close to the wall, like when you were a baby. This is a French idiom. Bercé trop proche de la mur.
Yeah, exactly.
Meaning the cradle. So a cradle, just for my listeners who don't know, a cradle is what a child will maybe sit in, like a little cot or something that swings back and forth to help the baby sleep. And the cradle was rocked too close to the wall. So I suppose this means that the kid banged its head against the wall over and over again. Meaning
the whole backstory, yes.
Yeah.
And that is why you've lost your keys.
So the different approaches. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's absolutely, you do have to just sometimes apply yourself to just learning phrases, grammar, and memorizing things. To be honest, it's like the whole package. You've got to listen and read a lot, and also actually get into the nitty-gritty of the language and do the mechanical and sort of memory level stuff.
I don't think there's any way around it. I mean, some people might disagree, and maybe some people have a brain that means you can just listen to French radio or listen to Italian radio and wallop, there you are speaking Italian. But I've never come across anyone who's genuinely done that. And yeah, Posey and Lapin, I think, is brilliant as well. You know that?
What, to show a rabbit? What?
Yeah. It means to stand someone up. So if you go, it's not. So it's not to stand someone up. Usually in English is romantic, isn't it? Oh God, we went. I met someone on Tinder or whatever, I don't know, and then they stood me up.
So we had a date at the cinema. I was waiting outside the cinema, but she didn't come. Oh no, she stood me up. Yeah,
stood me up, exactly. And in French, it's poser un lapin, to show a rabbit, but it's also but it's a friend. So I was meeting a friend tonight, and he showed me a rabbit. So if you were, even if you spoke a bit of French, but you didn't know that, you would think, what?
Is your friend a magician? What?
Yeah.
Did he arrive in a top hat with white gloves on? And look, oh, very good, nice trick. Anyway, let's go for a drink.
Yeah, exactly. Not only showed me the rabbit, but then when we went for a drink, the rabbit was a nuisance. He made it disappear. Yeah.
Funny expressions. So, how is your learning of French? How's it going? What's the most difficult thing for you?
It's listening to any drama. If I listen to, I've just done a show in French that's gone on the radio. I'm all right talking to someone in French 1-to-1. I can do that all day, and I'm fairly. I reckon I get 90% of what they're saying, possibly, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've walked away from speaking all day with someone in French, unaware that they've been telling me that they're a serial killer, and I've just thought, what a nice man. I don't know.
Or at the end, you're like, okay, bye, all right, bye, see you next week. And then afterwards, when you've gone, they're like, oh God.
I don't know, it's possible. I've got away thinking, what a nice lady works in the greengrocers. No, she was actually telling you she's an astronaut. Oh, I don't know, but I think I'm and I can listen to the news and I get probably 70-80% of that. If I try to listen to a film in French on Netflix, nothing. I barely understand a thing, and I have the French subtitles. If I can put them on,
yeah,
then I can follow it. But without that, you absolutely useless. So I swing from being, I've cracked this, to then thinking I haven't learned a thing, and it's quite depressing. Until you sort of go, in a way, it's like that with everything in life, isn't it? It's like, imagine if you're playing, I don't know, tennis. You might get to a point where you're actually, let's say you get to be the best player in your club. You might think, I'm absolutely brilliant. And you go to a regional tournament and you can't win a point. And it's like, in a way, it's like anything in life, isn't it?
It's like is it the Dunning-Kruger effect? There's I can't remember exactly the shape of it, but it's a wave which shows. Oh God, okay, hold on a second. Let me just Google this, because I can't just talk about it off the top of my head without getting it all wrong. So the Dunning-Kruger effect. So it's a cognitive bias whereby people with low ability or low expertise or low experience regarding a certain type of task or area of knowledge tend to overestimate their ability or knowledge. And there is a wave which I can try and show this on the screen. If I share my screen, this should also be recorded.
Oh, there's a big old graph, yeah.
So it's a graph, right? And it's
plateau of sustainability.
That's where you want to be. Yeah.
Oh, so there's a thing called Peak of Mount Stupid and then a Valley of Despair. Have you got that?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. So just to describe it, just for the listeners, so it's a graph. The axis on the left, the vertical axis, shows confidence, and you've got high at the top and low at the bottom, of course. And then the horizontal axis says competence, like your ability to do something. With you know nothing on the left, and then you are an absolute guru who knows everything on the right. And then the line is that you start obviously at the bottom and you shoot all the way up to the top in terms of confidence right at the beginning, as you progress. Because making a little bit of progress in learning a language means that suddenly you feel like you're able to speak that language. So we've all been there. We've all kind of learnt another language a little bit, and then suddenly we're trying to run before we can walk, and we are trying to like debate philosophy or something in the other language, but then without realizing it, it's all broken down. And so you don't realize how little you know or how bad you are at the very beginning, and then you slowly come to terms with it. You slowly realize, and you dip all the way down as you come face to face with reality, and you get down to the valley of despair, and then slowly but surely you piece things back together, and you, as you make further progress, you slowly build up your confidence. But I think this wave of kind of going, yeah, I'm brilliant, and then, oh God, no, I'm terrible, and then you claw your way back, that is a constant wave.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Through the learning of a language, absolutely.
I think. And I think it's the same with anything, because I think it's quite easy to make yourself seem like an expert. Like if you went to the library and borrowed a 200-page book on First World War aircraft and you read that, you could then sound like an expert on First World War aircraft. People would be going, blimey, Luke knows all about, amazing. He knows all about what different types of Cessnas and was it Sopwith, this, that, and the other.
Sopwith camels.
Yeah. Amazing. He knows how many were shot down over here and that. But then if you went to a convention, a First World War aircraft convention, you would be the idiot you've only read one book. That's all you've done. And so I think it's fair, but I think it's fairly easy to make yourself so, particularly in England, in Britain, where people are so bad at languages. If you go, you have to do so little to impress other people around you who speak nothing. So if you manage to go, if you're the one who goes to the front when you all get to Paris and go to the hotel, and you're able to say, bonjour, monsieur, j'ai réserve de nuit pour les quatre. That's, ooh, look at him, look at Charles de Gaulle. So, but if you're, but as soon as you actually start to engage with it properly, you realise how difficult it is. And I've spent a lot of time, I've spent a real lot of time trying to learn this bloody language, and and I still go through those waves. So because I had a couple of hours on Thursday with the French woman who teaches, we speak French all the time, and we never break into English, and it's fine. And we were talking about all the chaos in Britain, the economy and all that, all fine. But then the minute I sort of turn on a French film or a French television program, I'm in a terrible pickle. The news, I'm all right because it's sort of done more steadily, but as soon as, I don't know, little phrases, I suppose, something like je m'en occupe, I'll see to it. That threw me. I heard someone say that, and then I had to look it up. You have to stop, and I suppose one day I'll get to that. But it's very very difficult. So I suppose the only thing I would say to anyone trying to learn a language is don't despair at that. Look back at where you've come from and go, oh no, I can do all of this now. Don't just look ahead at all the things you haven't done yet. Also look back at the things you have managed to achieve. And that's like anything, isn't it?
I would agree. Yeah, you've got to just be aware of the progress you've made and try and stay positive and stay motivated. That is absolutely essential, because you've just got to keep moving when learning a language. And if you stop, then it all starts to fall apart. It's just it's like doing physical training. If you stop going to the gym, then the muscles start to get all flabby and you lose it. So you've got to just keep working.
It's exactly like that. Yeah.
If one thing isn't working, if you failed in one thing, it's all right, don't beat yourself up. You go and do something else. If you don't understand that movie, it's not the end of the world. Go on and just like read a book or listen to something that you do understand, and then come back to the film. But I've heard many, many, many times from my listeners and my students that listening to films and TV shows is the hardest thing.
Oh,
it's
really?
Yeah. It's like it's really interesting because everyone automatically goes to Netflix and they go, "I'll watch Netflix, and this will be my way of improving my English," because they think they'll just be able to sit back and enjoy a TV show. But maybe that's the thing. Maybe we expect it to be relaxing and easy and pleasant, but because it's in another language that we're trying to learn, and because it's all very naturalistic dialogue, there's a lot of music, there's lots of sound effects. It's a visual medium, so the language, the oral language is not front and center. It's quite hard to catch what they're saying. And so it is actually really hard. And so we become suddenly very aware of how much more difficult and how much more unpleasant it is as an experience to watch something in another language. So, God. Netflix and movies and things are really difficult and maybe not the best thing to listen to.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because that means that, I'm not quite, Oh, I went last night. It's interesting sometimes. I think, I wonder how much you actually catch in your own language. You don't realise you've not caught it. You're watching a film. You think there's probably bits that are mumbled and you think, that's like, but you don't. Oh, that's okay. It don't really matter. I didn't. Oh, they were speaking while the kettle was boiling or whatever. You don't actually. Oh, I went to a thing last night. This did my head in. So I happened to be on my own this weekend, but in a nice way. My son, who lives in the house with me, he's off with his girlfriend, and my daughter's in Brighton. She's got a baby, and that's all lovely. And my lovely partner has gone down to the Isle of Wight with her daughter. So I'm on my own. So and you sort of think, all right, well, let's make a virtue out of this. So I went to the local cinema on my own, and I thought, this is great. I love doing that.
Yeah.
It was this horror film. I didn't know. I just went in. It was called Smile. Mm-hmm. And I just went in, thought, oh, all right.
Smile sounds nice.
Fucking Ada. There's an idiom for you.
Fucking Ada. Who is Ada?
Ada is not it right. For anyone learning English who doesn't know this phrase, fucking Ada is not good.
No.
Oh my giddy aunt. Here we are, there's another one.
Oh my giddy aunt.
Oh my giddy aunt. I don't know how many people say that now. Only me probably. It's probably from about the 1920s. But fucking Ada and oh my giddy aunt.
Yeah.
I came out a gibbering wreck from this thing. It clearly was very good at what it did.
Wow. It traumatized you.
It absolutely did traumatize me.
Yeah. What really? Okay, that's an effective film.
I don't want to give it away because anyone wants to see it, but it was really quite. I come out. Oh no, I'm on my own, and I've got to go.
Oh no, and you were scared. You had to go home on your own. Okay, well there you go, folks. If you want to get a good scare, watch the film Smile, which is God knows why they call it Smile. But
well, there is a very good reason.
Sylvia, okay.
It's there's demons involved.
Anyway, demons. All right. So I wanted to ask you as well about. That's it. I wanted to ask you where you're from. You just said things like "fucking Ada" and "oh my giddy aunt" and stuff like that. And also, my listeners, whenever I have guests on the show, I do like to ask them where they come from, just so that my listeners can get an idea of where the accent is from, so they can place the accent. Because everyone's got an accent, and I want my listeners to be able to at least maybe understand or identify somewhat the various accents.
We're in the area of one of my favourite subjects.
Yeah,
because I'm very, very, very interested in accents, and I'm from Kent, which is the bit nearest Europe, which it celebrates by being the place that most hates Europe. So, coming over here. So
again,
yeah, same. It was the same with the fucking Gauls and Saxons,
the Normans.
Yeah, I had a joke I was telling the actors about when you hear builders on phone-ins that go. Thing is, right, the foreign builders, right, they're destroying the job for us, right? Because say you're a Polish builder, right, they'll come over here and they'll say to you, we're going to come round on a Wednesday, right? And then what they do is they come round on a Wednesday. We can't compete with that. So, you did hear people saying that? Would that be in French? Comment pouvons-nous rivaliser contre cela? So they.
So you're from Kent. You're from, which part of Kent? Does it make a difference which part?
Yes. So Kent is a lovely English phrase, iggledy-piggledy. Mm-hmm. It's all different bits together, mélange. And there's some very, very beautiful and tranquil parts of Kent. And then right next to it, there will be a really poor town. There is, in fact, I would think many French people may have been on it. There's a beautiful little miniature railway, tiny thing, beautiful thing. Kids love it. I went on it a lot when I was young, called the Romney Hythe and Dymchurch Railway. And it's so Kent because it's sort of these nice people with retired people, volunteers in uniforms. Hello, son. Yeah, you go and you give you a little old ticket from 1950, a little cardboard thing. You put that on the train and you can go on the railway, my little angel. And then all the kids go on the little train, a family, and you could see tourists, with a picnic and a little plastic box, Tupperware box with the sandwiches, and they must think, oh, this beautiful railway, it's going to go through some charming Kent villages, and then it goes through a place called Dymchurch, where these huge blokes in Union back shorts and stuff, so the kids are waving at them, and they're like, you fucking waving at, and then it'll go through a nice little village. Oh, maybe we're stopping here for a picnic, and then for another one of those towns. And it ends up, they must think, it must end up probably by a cliff, and we can watch the sea and we can fly a kite. And it ends up at Dungeness Power Station.
Lovely.
And it's this very, very beautifully bleak bit of scenery. It's staggering. Can you get it up, Luke? Can you get it up have a look at it, the image of
Dungeness Power Station. It's a sort of, when was this built? Is this a kind of it's like made of concrete, basically.
Yeah.
It's a concrete power station. It's very bleak looking. It's like something from, in the 1960s, this would have been a vision of the future.
Absolutely. That's absolutely what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Unbelievable. And that's where this beautiful, charming tourist attraction thing ends up there. And I've said sometimes tourists must think, they're going to drive us into it. This is how you get fuel in Kent. Tourists.
That's how the English energy grid is powered, by pushing tourists into this old weird 1960s power station and transforming them into electricity.
Yeah. So that's very Kent. So I was brought up there, but I was brought up in a bit that's near London. So my accent is probably mostly South London, but not entirely, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I would be. If you're to be really nuanced about it, there is an East London accent would be like mine, but the vowels would be a bit longer, so it sounds a little bit more aggressive.
That's like your Jason Statham, innit? These days, your modern example of that.
Yeah, I guess he'd be East End. South London's quite capable of being aggressive, like my man in the car earlier, but East London like that. They got no top lip at all, like that. You know what I'm saying? That's it. That's exactly it.
That's top lip.
You're doing. That's it. Yeah.
Just the teeth.
It's probably quite subtle if you're not English to hear the difference there. But yeah. So even within London, there are
all sorts of different accents. Definitely. Yeah. So we were talking about your show earlier that you did in Paris. That was like the last show of the season of your BBC radio show called Mark Steele's in Town. And for the rest of the season, you've been travelling around the country, visiting lots of different places. So it's a great idea for a show. It's amazing. And so you go. How does it work then? What kinds of places do you visit, and what's the process?
Right. So about 12 years ago, the BBC Radio asked me to come up with an idea for a programme, and I didn't really know what to say. And I just sort of found myself saying in conversation, I've always thought that the bit as a comic you enjoy most about going to a town is the little 3-minute bit you do at the start of the show about that town. I love doing that, finding out 2 or 3 little things. And I thought, I've often thought, I wonder if you could do a whole show about a town. You obviously can't do it in a live tour because it would take you'd only be able to do 6 shows a year. But if that was a radio series or a television series, then you would have the time to do that. Just write a whole show about the history of the town, the characters in the town, the things people care about in the town. And I just bit by bit found that it does work, and people, I think, and people listen to it at home in a different way to the people in the audience, because the people in the audience are hearing about their own town, and the people at home are hearing about a town they don't know anything about. And the audience makes it really. So, for example, before Paris, I went to Newport, which is a small town in South Wales. One of the things I loved was they've got a huge thing called a transporter bridge there, a quite amazing thing built in 1906. Great big, enormous bridge. And I mentioned the bridge, and the whole theatre, there's about 500 people there, the whole theatre just cheered. Just cheered.
Really?
Because they love it.
You just mentioned the bridge and they all went, yeah!
Yeah. Exactly. And it's because they identify with it. It's so much fun. Afterwards, I was in the pub, and a guy comes up to me, yeah, Matt, might want to look at that. And he rolled his shirt sleeve up, and he's got a tattoo of the bridge on his arm. And he went, I said, that's amazing. And he went, the thing is, right, and there's a Newport accent, took me hard day to learn this, right? He goes, thing is with that, Mark, when my son was born, in the maternity ward of the hospital, it's right opposite the bridge. So I held my newborn son in my arms for the first time, and I looked out of the window, and that's what I could see. So I thought, I'm going to have that tattooed on my arm.
If people were to see the bridge, I mean, what does it look like? Because that's a very beautiful thing that you just said, where this guy who lives in the area, his newborn baby holding it in his arms for the first time. He looks out the window and there's the bridge, and he thinks, I'm going to have that tattooed on my arm. Yeah. Now, what actually does the bridge look like, though?
Well, it looks a lot more modern than you would think. It was built in 1906. It's a great big metal grid. So it goes up 200 feet, I think, quite high. So you climb up these metal steps to go up one side. Then there's the same the other side. And then there's a platform along the top that's wire mesh. So it's not good if you're a little bit wobbly about heights. It is a bit scary. So, and then hanging from the top are all these cables, and at the bottom is a big platform. And so in the programme, I say it's an extraordinary bit of engineering, but it is worth it because as a result of this bridge, it is capable of transporting as many as 3 cars an hour to the other side of the river. That's pretty much what it does. And
3 cars an hour.
It would actually be probably more efficient to have your car dragged through the river by an elephant. But it's very, very beautiful, and it's very metallic and very industrial, shall we say?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, people have got different versions of beauty, but it's got that industrial kind of turn of the century mechanical engineering type of beauty. And it's so the way it works here is that it's not a bridge that you can walk over or drive over. Instead, it just carries a platform across the river, and it would have been, I guess, really, really important. These days it's used for transporting cars across, but not the most efficient. 3 cars an hour.
This is how difficult language is. We were talking about, so I have to try and learn phrases from a town, and I learned there's a sort of jokey hip hop group called Goldie Looking Chain from Newport. And they are very much the essence of Newport, and I got to sort of know them a bit when I did the programme, and they helped me a lot with the accent. And there's one phrase I got from them was, so if I do it, I started off the programme with this: "And I sees you in the park on the draw, you knows it."
Wow.
I think most English people, until I did the program, would have heard that, and it might as well have been Polish. But it's "Are scat." So scat is sort of a mate. I sees you, because they muck about with the tenses. Not I saw you, but I sees you. I sees you in the park. That's okay. On the draw is having a
Smoking a spliff.
Smoking a spliff. You knows it. So that's like,
you knows I sees you in the park, meaning I saw you in the park.
Quite well, actually. Because it's a really hard accent. You're doing that really well.
Well, I could just copying you, but I don't know if I could do more. But yeah, I love accents as well, and I noticed that about your show, that you definitely try to learn the accent of each place that you go to, which is really fascinating.
I don't always do it. I did with Newport. I think I got it, but I didn't. I tried Nottingham. I spent a day up there with someone from the university and stuff, who's a language person who was teaching me, and I thought I'd got it, and then I lost it a little bit. It's
tricky, tricky, that area, that sort of North Midlands sort of that area where it's like mixed between the Midlands and Yorkshire or something.
That's exactly it. So it's Yorkshire, but the eyes go oi, like Birmingham. So a fight is a foit. So it's like you're saying foit, like Birmingham people would, but in a Yorkshire accent. Up there,
foit,
foit. That's it.
Foit.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, that's it. Foit. Yeah, I can't say I've lost it completely now, but yeah. Oh, and here's one. I'm sorry if this is confusing your listeners. You don't need to know this, but I just think it's interesting. So this is a phrase they have. If it's going to rain, they go, "It's looking black over Bill's mother's." Isn't that brilliant?
In where?
In Nottingham.
In Nottingham, it's looking black over Bill's mother's, meaning Bill's mother's house.
Bill's mother's house.
It's looking black over Bill's mother's house. I can understand that it's looking black part over the house, meaning the clouds are dark, right? I would say.
Yes,
no?
Yes, I think that's probably it, yeah.
But who's Bill's mother?
Well, we don't know. Exactly. I'm sorry. I don't know if you're if you're German, but who is Bill? You know this Bill? No, I don't know. There is no Bill. But how do you know?
She is the meteorologist in the town.
Yes, and she understands. But if Bill's mother maybe lives in another country, and so it does not indicate that it will rain in this country, because she is living somewhere else, like Japan. No. It's just over Bill's mother's. But we have to ascertain where she is living to understand where it is the rain is likely to come. No, it's just black over.
Just an expression.
Mother.
It's just an expression.
But maybe it is night time, and this is no. It's just fucking black over Bill's mother's.
I don't know how to ask you like a deep and insightful question about what you've learnt about the country from doing your show, without it sounding pretentious. But I'll just do it. So, have you learnt anything insightful about the country from doing that show?
I suppose I've learned this, that everywhere you go, so we've done 66, I think, of these shows now, and apart from Paris, Malta, Gibraltar, all the others have been in sort of Britain. We're in the Channel Islands and the Isle of Man, so, and everywhere you go, there are a big group of people that probably comprise the majority who have a great love and affection for the place that they're in. They love the history. They love not to the extent that I've got bloody gone into it with a mania, but they love the fact that they've got their accent that makes it different to other places. I think people love that sense. Things like in Newport, there was a huge cheer for a woman who runs a place called Fanny's Cafe. So this woman was more famous in Newport, the woman who runs the famous cafe, and it's not a posh cafe, it really isn't. She was more famous probably than Rihanna. If Rihanna was in front of that audience, probably half of them wouldn't know who she was, but everyone knew who Fanny was. And there's a great love of those things that make a place what it is, I think. And that shows to me there is still very much a sense of community. I mean, I say I've got, like, for example, I say this in my act, in Northampton, there's a town called Northampton. Everybody, it's a good one for learning English. In Northampton, everybody knows about the sign outside the hospital that says family planning advice, use rear entrance. Yeah.
Wait, we've got to have to break that down. Family planning it. There's a sign outside the hospital. It says family planning advice, use rear entrance.
Yes. Now that's a great one to teach. That's a great one to sort of teach people, isn't it? I'd wonder if my listeners have noticed that. They won't even. Some of them will have noticed it and got it. Some people will have noticed that there's a joke here, but they haven't got it yet. And a lot of other people have not even noticed that there's a joke there. So family planning. Imagine, listeners, there's a hospital and at the back there is a sign, family planning advice. So family planning, that's when you've decided to have a baby or try to have a baby. Right, and family planning is in, all the things you need to think about and do. Or it could be about contraception.
Or it could be about this
is where you go to a woman to get a coil fitted or something like that.
Exactly, family planning, all the things you need to do if you want to have a baby, and also all the things you want to do if you don't want to have a baby. It's all together in one category of family planning. And so, use rear entrance means two things. One thing is that it means use the entrance to the building, which is around the back, around the rear of the building, but also use rear entrance could be sexual advice for, it's advice for how to have sex in a certain position.
Yes, and a certain position which is not going to result in a baby.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So there is but I love the joke of it, but I also love that everybody in Northampton knows that. So that's
yeah, it's like a local thing that every single person knows. That's a wonderful thing. And everywhere you've been, you've managed to find these little local things that everyone knows, like Fanny, who's got the cafe in Newport, and the family planning sign at the hospital in Northampton.
Everywhere. They're everywhere. And it's and they're and also in Nottingham, for example. And now I can't believe there was never a point where I didn't know this, because everyone in Nottingham knows it. If you're going to meet someone in Nottingham, if two people in Nottingham are going to meet, there's the town hall, which they call the council house, which itself is confusing.
Yeah,
but leave that aside for now. They call it the council. It's a big town hall, columns, Hotel de Ville, if it was in France.
Mm-hmm.
And there are two lions, statues of two lions, one on either side. And you meet people in Nottingham at the left lion. Always the left lion. And everyone in Nottingham knows that. There's even a cultural magazine in Nottingham called The Left Lion. Meet at the left lion, that's what people say. And
not the right lion.
Oh my God, no. People would go, what are you talking about?
Yeah, you don't meet at the right lion. Yeah.
No, you just don't. It don't even suggest it. Again, like Bill's mothers. Why? I don't know. I'd say in the programme, if you want to win at hide and seek in Nottingham, just hide behind the right lion. I was there for 8 months. No one goes there. And I love the sort of surreal nature of why that is. Why is it?
Yeah, and that is very odd. There's just an odd thing about humans and communication and local identity, that everyone in the town knows that you meet at the left lion. How does that sort of thing get started, and how does it spread and become so accepted and normal? It's very interesting. Yeah, these things. It's the same thing with accents. Like accents are an expression of people's local identity, and people in Manchester speak with a Manchester accent, and there's probably a bit of a blend between the two, but certainly you get an area where people speak in Liverpool, people speak with a Liverpool accent because we're from Liverpool, and then in Manchester they've got more of a Manchester accent, and like that is an expression of who you are, and you accommodate to the people that you associate with, and so on. And in England and in the whole country, in the UK, the accents are so strong, and there's so many of them, and it just shows that that people really do have strong connections to their very local areas and stuff. And that's the same thing with these little things like the left lion and
Liverpool
so on.
Yes, Liverpool probably more, I would say, more than any other city in Britain has a sort of sense of independence. It's almost people identify with Liverpool more than they do with England. We're Liverpoolite. To the extent that if you cross the River Mersey, that many people of your listeners will have heard of, the River Mersey, you cross the River Mersey and you're in Birkenhead.
Birkenhead.
Where they still talk the Liverpool accent, but they don't do the bit so much. That's what I noticed. I don't know if that's right. So they talk more like that. Whereas on the other side, it's more sort of musical, and they talk about going to work. But Liverpool, so it's like, and if you say to people in Birkenhead, so people may know the phrase Scouser, which is a Liverpool saying for what you are. If you're, we're Scousers.
We're from Liverpool, we're Scousers.
Exactly. But if you're from the other side of the Mersey in Birkenhead, so you're Scousers. That's a very bad thing to say. They're not Scousers. You're on the other side of the river. So there's something very sort of, something wonderfully, I don't know, I find it compelling. There's other people, more rational people might think, what a stupid thing to spend your life thinking about. But I find that absolutely compelling, and where people identify with. And it's not in a nasty way. It's not in a nationalistic way. It's not like we're better than the other people, but this is how we are here, for whatever reason. That's why we identify with.
I find that fascinating too. And also just find it lovely, the different types of accent, the different sounds, and trying to copy them. And there's just so much character in all these different accents. But do you try to learn them then when you go to do your shows?
I do those, but it is also a bit of a madness. And I went to, a few years ago, I went to see a film people may know. You're more likely to know this in Europe because it's a Ken Loach film, and Ken Loach films are more popular outside Britain than inside. But there's a film we did called The Wind That Shakes the Barley about the two
IRA, right?
In the Irish Civil War in the 1920s,
Okay.
But it's a very, very moving film, but it's set in Cork, which is a very specific and difficult accent. And I spent the whole time trying to listen to Cork. There's a very specific accent during Cork.
And such very strange sort of intonation that they've got over there, that sort of thing.
Yes, that's very good. What you're doing is mine there, and it's I spent the whole time trying to, and there's like families being killed and wars and mothers crying, and I'm thinking, the mother there, what she's saying, and I felt really bad at the end of it. I thought I'm going to have to watch it again, not doing that, but but then also. For these programs, if I can't do the accent at all, then it's a bit of a struggle because I'm trying to take the piss out of them, and so I do try to learn it, but it's not. I don't always. There's some Berwick. It's ones where there's two that that are. This is getting very technical, very, very boring. So say there's a sort of, it's quite easy to do like a northeast accent, like a Newcastle or something like that in the northeast of England. They talk like that. I think it's something to do with like a Viking influence or something like that. And then if you go across the border and to Scotland and the borders there's a wee sort of area where they speak like that. But then Berwick is halfway between the two, and it's half of one and half of the other. And I just couldn't do it. I tried, and I absolutely couldn't get near it.
I always find when I'm trying to do accents, there are certain holes that you fall into. So, also certain holes that sit, they're like portals that take you to other accents. So sometimes when I'm trying to do a generic Irish accent, probably Dublin, sometimes you slip into a hole and you end up in Jamaica.
Right.
Like you start doing an Irish accent, and then before you know it, you've become Jamaican.
It's quite. Yes, you can do.
People try and do a Welsh accent, and they end up sounding like they come from India.
I think the musicality of it, because if you do a Welsh accent, if you're from Cardiff, that's not so bad, like because it's quite harsh. But like in the valleys, that sort of place, somewhere out there, or Pontypridd, or somewhere where there was a lot of people down the pits and all that. It's quite musical. And for some reason, I think if you just start doing it if you start doing it just a little bit too sharp, then you've got the same musicality as someone from a call centre in Mumbai.
It's true, yeah. And Cockney and Australian as well. Sometimes you get someone who's Cockney and then like, "G'day, mate. Yeah, good. How you going, mate? I'm Cockney, and now I'm Australian, mate, and now I'm fucking Cockney." I don't know if they.
There might be a reason for that. There might be the Australian accent. I don't know if more people with that accent.
All the East End gangsters got sent to Australia, on the prison ships. So they were like, "Fucking hell, son. Here we are in Australia. What's going on?" G'day, mate.
Interesting. I wonder whether, because I sometimes ask people from Australia, for example, about accents, and I think it's fascinating that I don't know the reasons. I'm sure people that have reasons, you can guess at them. I don't know, but Britain has so many completely diverse accents. Australia, a place, obviously, it's to do with the fact that they've only had 250 years of being there to spread around, whereas we've had thousands. But a Perth accent is not really very much different from a Melbourne, I don't think. I certainly can't tell a difference.
I bet in Australia they would disagree with that, but like I think you're right. In terms of let's say the geography or just the number of really clearly different accents, if you take a Scouse accent and a sort of Cornish accent or something, there are really major differences between them, or just received pronunciation and Newcastle, there are really clear differences. I don't know if you get the same level of diversity in Australia. I think it's probably fair to say.
No.
Yeah.
I think, yes. One thing that is always the case is that a rural accent is slower than a city accent. So, for example, people like if you're from Somerset, if you come from like a little farming place in somewhere like Somerset, that's quite a well-known accent, and most people can mimic that to some degree. Then if you go to Bristol, which is right in the middle of all that area, it's exactly the same accent, but just 3 times quicker, and I do know I might be talking absolute rubbish here. I probably am most of the time, but most of us can do an Australian accent. But the only time I do think, that is different, is when you hear one of these guys from out in the outback, and it's the same thing, but about almost like a record being played backwards. And it's like out in the middle of Queensland there, and the sun's got to me head a little bit, and
ended up sleeping outside in the bush, and I had to eat a crocodile for breakfast. That was a good morning.
And then the snake bit me, and it's made me even more crazy than I was before.
Oh dear. I hope that my listeners are still with us here. But
I don't mind. Probably you do a bit more than me. I love talking about this. I'm absolutely fascinated by it, and I know there are people that study it properly, aren't there? And they'll go, and I wouldn't want to study it properly. I'd rather just not know. I don't really want to know why it's black over Bill's mothers.
Yeah, I mean, you get linguists, who take a scientific approach to understanding, why certain dialects use certain phrases and why different accents happen, and the differences, you break it down phonetically and all that stuff. That's all well and good, and I think fascinating, but also there's just something really fun and enjoyable about exploring all the different varieties of English that we have in the UK and celebrating them.
Yeah, it's fun. Sheffield. Have you ever heard this? There used to be a phrase in Sheffield. If someone was a little bit, dithering, it couldn't make their mind up. Yeah, couldn't make their mind up.
Indecisive, like, I don't know what to do. Shall I do that or that? You're dithering again.
Yeah. So there's a phrase. Oh, trouble with him. He don't know if he wants a shit or an haircut.
He doesn't know if he wants a shit or an haircut. He doesn't know, listeners, if he wants a shit or a haircut. I don't know what I want. Is it a shit or a hair?
Brilliant. I think there's something really, really brilliantly descriptive about it. You're so indecisive, you can't even make your mind up about whether you want to go to the toilet or go and cut your hair.
I don't know, Mark. I don't know. I just don't feel right today. I think my hair. I think I'm going to go to the hairdressers. Hold on a minute. Wait a minute. No. I just need a shit. Lastly, Mark, and I'm slightly wary of bringing up a whole new topic here, but I'm going to do it anyway. And that's the fact that you have another show. You've got your podcast, which is called "What the Fuck Is Going On."
Oh yeah, there's a little phrase on its own, isn't it? That's very English.
Just what the fuck? Yeah, adding the fuck after a question word. You can put the fuck in pretty much any question, or after any WH word, like where am I? Where the fuck am I? Who are you? Who the fuck are you? What is going on? What the fuck is going on? How are you? How the fuck are you? Yeah, you can put the fuck. You can put the
versatile word.
You can put the fuck is definitely the most versatile word in the English language. I'm certain of it. I'm convinced.
There was a poet I saw once who said that he worked on a building site once, if it's true, but he said the story, the building site, and because I don't know grammar enough, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but he said he saw the word fuck used 4 consecutive times in a sentence, heard the word fuck used 4 consecutive times in a sentence as a verb, noun, adverb, and adjective. And he said something was broken and he went, the fucking fuckers fucking fucked.
The fucking fuckers fucking fucked. Yeah. I would add also to that, you can also say the fucking fuckers fucking fucked. Because we also use fucking as a thing that we say to lead into something else, as a bit like the way we say You can also say fucking what should we do?
Right. Oh, right, okay. Here's the thing. I was on quite a long time ago. I was in Iceland, and I was asked to go on Icelandic television on what was their main political show, the sort of equivalent of the thing that comes on in Britain at midday on a Sunday. With us is the Chancellor of the Exchequer or what have you. Mm-hmm. And they asked me to go, the presenter. Now, Iceland's a small country, it's 300,000 people. So it's not like going on the BBC or, a major television station, NBC or something. But I went, in particular, this is quite a long time ago, he asked this guy clearly in a live interview, was leading me towards doing a joke that he'd seen me do the night before in a show in Reykjavik. And it was about, God, this is a long time ago, so I think I turned 40. And I said, I realised that one of the differences that I was singing along to the Rage Against the Machine song that goes, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me, while I was hoovering. And that's sort of...
That just showed that you'd entered a sort of a new stage in your life where you're hoovering and you're going, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me.
Oh, hang on, I've missed a bit behind the city. Yeah, so I was... so he was leading me into to that, and I thought, oh, how do I say this? So I said, being professional, I said, yes. So while I was singing, there's a famous song by a band called Rage Against the Machine. People might know it. It is screw you, I won't do what you tell me. But I did it while I was hoovering. Live television, and the presenter said, yes, but that is not the song. It is fuck you. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. The song is fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. And I was a live television.
He was disappointed that you hadn't used the F word on live television. He was like, no, but Mark, I wanted you to use the word fuck. Why didn't you say fuck? That's the name of the song.
Exactly that. And I said, yeah, but we're on television. And he went, but you could say fuck. Why can't you not say fuck? Fuck is fine to say fuck on television. And it was like the equivalent of, if this wasn't even like a late night comedy thing. And so I thought, well, I guess the word fuck has a different strength in every culture, really.
Absolutely. I mean, in France, you hear it on the radio in the supermarket. You'll be going, yeah, definitely. Yeah. There used to be a radio station, FGR, fucking good radio. That was the name of the radio station. Yeah. Fucking good radio was the name of the station. Bonjour à tous, vous écoutez fucking good radio.
Wow. But you wouldn't say, but Nikkei is much harsher.
Nikke, yeah.
No,
There's a common insult to. I won't say it because my French listeners will be like, "Oh, when he says fuck, it's fine, but don't say nique." But in France, the English word fuck doesn't carry the same level of power as it does in English, unless, of course. I mean, obviously that I think this is true. It's interesting that in a second language, when you are listening to a second language, both jokes and swear words have no impact on you. It seems that the swear words don't have the same level of power. Although, having said that, I do have some listeners who are obviously who have English as a second language, but they still don't like the swearing because they've probably learned that they've learned not to like it.
There's a little town in Wales called Carnarvon. This is what its language is so fast. Well, it's two little things I've learned about swearing, shall we say, on my doing these shows. Carnarvon, I've not done Carnarvon, and I wouldn't be able to do this, but an endearing term of like, oh, you silly person. In English, they do speak Welsh there as a first language, but in English is cunt. Mm-hmm. Oh, you silly cunt. They say that in Carnarvon. That's amazing. And to your granny. Hello, granny. Oh, I've dropped my pencil. Oh, you silly cunt. That's the power of language, because to people outside Carnarvon, that is like, what?
Yeah. So I'd say there's two versions of the word cunt. There's the X-rated version, which is used as a very, very insulting swear word, and it's taken really, really, really badly. But then in some places, the word cunt is used as like just an almost everyday word to refer to someone. So like that, oh, you silly cunt. Or even like I think in Glasgow they use it like that too. Like look at these cunts over here. Like.
Yes,
meaning just people.
In this town, it's not even. But even then, if you wouldn't say it, I wouldn't say that to me mum. I wouldn't. If I'd ever said to me mum, if she went, "Oh, I can't find my glasses," oh, you silly cunt. She would have just frozen. She would have frozen like in a Greek myth with Midas or whatever. She'd be like that, and she would still be stone. But here it's just. Now, here's another thing. So I think this is fascinating, right? So tell me if I'm going on too much. Right. The Isle of Portland is this little area of Dorset. Used to be an island. There's a little bridge there now. But for a reason that nobody is quite sure, and I heard all the debates when I went there, you're not allowed to say the word rabbit. Rabbit is a swear word. They talk about underground mutton. There's a film, Curse of the Werewolf, people might know, and when it came out in the Isle of Portland, it was advertised as Curse of the Were-Bunny.
What? Oh, the Were-Rabbit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, the Wallace and Gromit film, right?
Sorry, what did I say? Sorry, Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
Yeah,
and the Wallace and Gromit film had to be Curse of the Were-Bunny in the Isle of Portland because.
Sorry, just to be clear, listeners, the Isle of Portland is just off the south coast of England, off Dorset. It's kind of an island. I guess it gets at high tide. It probably gets cut off, but it's right, yeah. a little island just to the south of.
Yeah, on the south coast of England. Little tiny place, very beautiful, very dramatic, lot of wind.
But the word rabbit there is a swear word. How on earth is that?
We don't know, but it's absolutely forbidden. Kids will be sent home from school for saying rabbit. It's forbidden. So, of course, I do a big bit of the program, and we're talking about, I'm using these youth, and I've been there 2 or 3 days making the program and so on. And I was now talking about underground mutton and furry creatures and this sort of thing. And you get used to it, and you start building up a sort of a mental, emotional charge that's, oh my God, it would be really terrible to say rabbit. And I had a bit of the script, right, where we're talking about, I'm even talking to someone who I think was a linguist there and why it happened and stuff. And the end of the programme was there was a famous sort of little London musical act in Britain that people may have heard of called Chas and Dave. And they had a very famous song. Their first famous song was called Rabbit. That in itself is interesting because rabbit is slang for talking too much. But leave that aside. It was rabbit, and the song went rabbit, 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 rabbit. So at the end of the show in the Island of Portland, in front of quite a big audience from the Island of Portland, all gone very well, I said, so the Island of Portland, I'm going to finish tonight as we had such a lovely time. We're going to have a lovely sing-along, and what better song to sing together as a community song, the famous old song by Chas and Dave, and they already started booing, and then it became like, oh no, this is that some of these people are booing, really meaning it. And then what I had in the script was that I then stopped and I went, oh, come on, Island Portland, we've got on really well. You know that I was not going to end the show by ruining it all by saying the word rabbit. And rabbit would actually be the last word in the show.
Yeah.
But it was so angry, the producer was like signaling to me, don't do it. And I thought, well, I've got to do it. And I said the word rabbit. And as I was saying it, I actually felt fear. I thought, but not just fear, I thought, I can't do this. This is horrible. This is like I've gone into a mosque and said something, the worst thing you can possibly say in a religious citadel. It just and then I thought, no, but that's mad. But that is the sort of power of language. Is that I don't know. I don't know what it says about the power of language.
Very interesting though, because it does kind of show us that a word which is. Yeah, a word can just be given this power. I don't know how that happens. I mean, going back to the C word, we have other words in English that mean the same thing, other words which are also kind of swear words. Like we've got the word twat as well, which is exactly the same as the word cunt. I mean, it's the same thing, but the power of it in, I mean, it's different in America and other parts of the country probably, but like where I'm from, twat is just like much more mild and will not cause offence, even though it's essentially exactly the same as the C word. And I don't really know why that is.
No idea.
It's just, it's kind of arbitrary or, it's a bit of a mystery. It's a
bit like the rabbit thing, isn't it? We just decide this particular word is going to be prescribed, and suddenly, very, very quickly. I mean, I was studying the Isle of Portland for maybe 3 weeks. I was there for about three or 4 days. And by that time, it was enough for me to have this, oh my God. And a bit of me was going, oh, I've got to do it. And then also a bit of me going, but it's irrational.
It's irrational.
And some people loved it. And the 2 or 3 people were very angry. 2 people threw a £1 coin at me.
What, a £1 coin?
Yeah.
Wow, that's like a very heavy thing to throw. That's serious.
Yeah.
What, more than one person threw a £1 coin at you?
2 of them.
2 people threw £1 coins at you for saying rabbit. That is insane.
They were very angry. And it was in this very strange, there's the theatre in this big sort of Ministry of Defence building. The Ministry of Defence no longer used, and it came out. There was amazing sort of. It looked very much like something out of The Shining. This hotel, where the theatre was in, and I sort of went out afterwards. There was a little bar that was just lost in this great big enormous corridor that was probably 200 yards long, and we were sort of sat in the bar. This old fella came over with his wife. It must have been about 80. He looked absolutely charming, this chap, and he had a cravat and everything. And he said. He came over and he said, I'm so glad you did that. He said, I'm sick of these people here. They bloody stupid, ridiculous thing. You're not allowed to say it. And his wife went, he does get cross. And he was a lovely fellow. And he walked off. And then about 3 minutes later, by which time he'd gone halfway down this big long corridor, and there were still lots of people milling about, he'd got up onto the piano. And there was a big piano there. And he started playing Run, Rabbit, Run on the piano.
Run, rabbit, run, rabbit, run, run, run. Right.
There's an old song from the war, Run, Rabbit, Run. And he was playing that on the piano. And you could just hear his wife echoing down the corridor, oh, Get off, love. You'll cause no end of trouble.
Oh my God. Well, there you go, listeners, viewers. If you ever go to Portland, just don't ever say rabbit, okay? Unless you want to really cause a lot of fuss, which, you'd get a story out of it, that's for sure. Mark, we could keep I could keep talking to you all day. I would love to, but I think we probably should stop because I think all my listeners will just be skeletons with headphones on at this point.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. That's the charm of doing a podcast is you sort of, you can listen up until when you get fed up and then...
Exactly.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Mark, I'll recommend to my listeners that they listen to your other shows and stuff. I'll mention them in the sort of ending of this. But thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and to my listeners as well. It's been really good fun.
Probably got me over the mental trauma of watching that film with the demons.
Yeah. Forget about that now. Just think about Run Rabbit Run instead. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Cheers.